Council for Monday, August 13th, 2018, to order. And need approval of the agenda. Councilor McCarthy, all in favor? Okay, right to new business. First one is TR Fall Fairs request. Nothing's up for discussion from our last meeting. I think my issue with this is that we've got one person wanting to do a whole bunch of things, and I really, it's not a society or anything. I have issues with estimating to a private person. I think there's too much to be done here that a person can't do it. I think she's going to have to try to build a group around her. Pull stuff off that she wants to pull off. Things like the dance that she talked about, that I think could be handled by other nonprofit groups. Would make it a lot easier on her. And that's just a few of my concerns. Leave it open to council. Councilor McCash?
And I got a few concerns also. I mean, this would be something similar to all the vendors pulling out of Gristfest and moving some other part of town. And I don't think it was done amicably. I think there was a split, and there was no two ways about it. It was this is the way we're going to do. And and I also think that when we originally started funding that, it was to promote the Saddle Club and what they're doing down there with the Fall Fair, Grizzly Valley Days, or whatever you want to call it. But I think that was the initial goal, and this kind of separates from that.
On the Fall Fair thing, you know, the people that are coming into town to sell their wares, I've got a name right now, but I think she can do that. She did it, she's done it before. I can see some in-kind stuff to help her get through that and have that big downtown and still have the horse show and the baseball tournament down at the other end of town, and hopefully maybe there's a nonprofit group that wants to put on a dance. You can still have nearly what she's asking for, but have it split up a little bit. I'm in favor of the Fall Fair. I think it's great. I love the idea of the ball tournament going on. I think the horse tournament and the what she wants to do downtown here. But I think one person can't do it all. That's for sure. Anybody else?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of providing cash. I don't even really know if that's legal for us to give cash to just a resident who comes in looking for it. I totally support what she's doing. I think she's a little behind the 8 ball here. And I don't think that I'm one to go and say that she can't pull it off because she's one person. I think if she knows that we've given her the approval and we've given her the in-kind, that she can go get the volunteers together at that point to help her out. Put her Fall Fair on, but as for the dance and the in-kind for the curling rink and stuff like that, to me, that there's an opportunity to make money there, and if they can make money on it, fantastic. But we shouldn't be supporting them to go make money off the taxpayers. Is the way I look at it. So, in-kind I can support, but I can't support any cash donation at this time.
Yeah, I feel the same way. The in-kind I have an issue with. I'm not big on the cash that they're looking for. And I think she was already having some assistance with the dance in regards to the alcohol vendor and stuff like that. We'd already talked to somebody. So I think once she gets approval of something in-kind, she can look at volunteers at their chief meeting for stuff. So I totally support the in-kind part for the Fall Fair.
So, somebody make a motion.
And just one other point, the way I understand it, she wanted to put the Fall Fair that she was putting on in the downtown core, so that would mean shutting down streets and stuff for the downtown core, right? So that hasn't really been covered in this, is the way I understand it. This is just the approval for the in-kind. So I mean, she would have to come back to us again and say, hey, these are the streets we want to shut down. I think that would approve that. That I think is a debate all on its own as well. I don't know if that's something we want to do, I try to, like Councilor Mackay said, perhaps we try to ask her to go over to that area to put that on, or down high school field or something, but I don't know. I'd have to hear the debate on it actually to decide if the downtown core is right to shut down and put this on over the weekend. So there are people that have businesses in the downtown core that may sell similar stuff. I don't know if that's the right way to do it, but they pay taxes in town and that type of stuff, so I'm in support of it. I just don't know about the downtown core at this point. As long as we have more time to talk about the downtown core, I can support the in-kind.
Mr. Wall?
My guess is she'd be looking for direction from council on where to hold it. In her presentation, she was talking about the downtown core. If council doesn't want it in the downtown core, I would give that indication today.
There is, for the Griz Fest, there are also the, Soul Blades. Don't you pick up that?
So just on that, I mean, I think we closed downtown quite a bit for other functions, Canada Day and stuff like that. I mean, obviously through our district, but it actually draws more people into the downtown core. And I think that's a success for anybody that does have a business, whether it's, out to play, the grocery store, Subway. Even if she's gonna have food vendors, not everybody's gonna do that. So it does draw that atmosphere downtown and makes your downtown start getting busy. And I think that's a good vibe in our downtown core. Now, I'm not saying close down Front Street. I believe that was one of her comments is Front Street. We've done that before, but there's two parking lots too.
Okay.
I spent the day yesterday in Dawson Creek at
Sure.
and the rodeo and everything else going on. I think that's what they're trying to do. I'm not against anything that's taking place with this, just the location. And I think that that's what the Tumber Ridge Saddle Club are trying to do. They're trying to get along some of the same lines where you can start building on it, have the contest, the blue ribbon thing, everything else going on, the vendors and everything all taking place there. And again, if anybody thinks that I'm not in favor of what's going on here, it's only the location. That's the only thing I'm concerned about, and the split.
So you're against having it downtown?
Yeah.
Councilor Kirby?
Thank you, Your Worship. I talked with Diana Skilling from the Saddle Club, and I think when they split the event, it was just because the Saddle Club had a different vision. They're more onto the Gymkhana, the horse show, the arts and crafts, the fall fair kind of ribbon events, where April was going in a different direction, and it was just too much that the Saddle Club could take on for volunteers. They knew that wasn't kind of something that they could get behind or even help with. So when they split, the split was on good terms. What concerns me is that we've tried in town to put on several events we're not getting kind of the participation that we used to get on some like the fall fair or even with the TR Days with putting on Griz Fest, the numbers aren't there. And it used to be strong when we had the ball tournament on the same weekend, so they could kind of accent each other. We would give a special, I know that the society gave special rates on tickets, and so you got a bunch of people in on the same weekend, so it was good when you were hiring security and having everything kind of on the same weekend. When you split it up, I know that they're working with Chetwynd too, and I know Ellen had come to me and said, why aren't you guys having a ball tournament when you're having Griz Fest anymore? And it was just because of lack of volunteers, and it used to make a stronger event. And this is what I kind of get worried about is we're funding all these little events without really, one of our strategic plan was to grow Griz Fest and grow the Emperor's Challenge, to bring that in and kind of bridge the 2 weekends. So I'm kind of curious to see how the ball tournament turns out. If we're gonna have people register again and get back into that, and then maybe it's just trying to figure out how do we make our event stronger and such. So I'm for the ball tournament. I think holding it downtown, if that's the way it's gonna work, we can really get a read on if this is something that we can build on. As far as the cash donations, I would be up for that.
Does anybody have a motion they would like to present? Councilor Picard?
Council approves up to $3,900 for in-kind service as outlined in this report, as well as contingency for proposed Tumber Ridge Fall Festival.
now.
What do we mean by contingency?
Can I ask that myself?
Go on.
Just in case there's other things that get asked, council can reduce it down to the amount where we're only providing details in this report, but it's my experience that they're going to be requesting extra. If council leaves it at the exact amount requested, there'll be no flexibility from administration. You can provide that, but I can almost guarantee you there will be more asked of us before the event happens.
Thank you, Worship. With that recommendation, does that also include, would that fall under the district's insurance for anything that's happening out at the Diamonds, et cetera?
So the ball tournament will be under our insurance and what we're doing. But the in-kind part where we're setting up in the downtown core, or the field, wherever that happens to be, that would not be under our insurance. That would be part of the special event insurance, which would cover us as long as the society gets it. And that's part of recommendation number 3. Your Worship, there was no seconder on the motion.
Seconder? Councilor Kirby. So this will just give them the okay that about the in-kind, and that they can go ahead and start planning this thing, and then it'll come back to us for if it's going downtown or if it's going someplace else.
So if council wants to determine the location, I would do so today. The next meeting's on September 4th. I believe this event is planned for 15th. Yeah, I would imagine they're gonna want more than 10 days notice on where they're gonna put the event.
So, we haven't got anything in here that's saying which roads they want closed off or anything. I think that should come back to council.
You can, yeah, but the administration can close down roads ourselves. We don't need council to shut down roads. Our plan, just based on the presentation, was to put it in the parking lot in the middle of town. If that's something council doesn't want to do, you should provide that direction.
I'm comfortable with the parking lot in the middle of town, but again, I don't really want to be the one that tells an event, like, you guys have to do it here or there. Like, they should be the ones that have a report that comes in and says, this is where we want to put the event on, and have all their I's dotted, T's crossed. And, obviously, she's running last minute here, trying to get this in, and we've kind of created this special meeting so that we can approve this. I think we go ahead with the in-kind, and, if they can't pull it off, then there's no money, there's no harm, no money spent, right? So no harm lost.
Sure.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm just looking through the report here, they haven't, are they looking for, I think we could, I think would make sense to approve for a location. So, I just am not sure exactly where they want it downtown. Is it in front of the community? Can we ask, just, if they know where it is,
When April presented, she did say that we would like to do it outside the community center,
okay,
but it depends on the paving, and that's why the roads aren't specified. Is because, and then they started, right after that meeting, they started to dig up in front of the community center, which says that spot is gonna be paved. So we'd like to do it at the community center, the access is better for people, and there's also accessible washrooms there. And we've now got Pattern Energy, we're working with the chamber for the insurance. And we now have, Dave was in with Pattern Energy, came in to see me out of the blue on Friday. And he'd like to do a couple of things inside the community center. So I think the community center area is the best location.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Any more discussion on it? All in favor of the recommendation? Opposed? Carried. Okay, that takes us to 303.
Worship, before you move on, just to bring your attention, there's 2 more recommendations. One's for the funds to the public library for children's events. That's council's decision, but I would strongly recommend that number 3 is passed to ensure that there's insurance and that the district is named as an additional insured for the event. It's very possible that there will be no funds required. In the past, when the Chamber of Commerce has held events like this, it's simply under the insurance they already have, and they just go to their insurance provider, talk to them, and they'll allow it to happen. But if not, this would provide the funds to ensure it can happen. If there's no special event insurance in which the district is named as an additional insured, I would recommend to council that we don't provide the event services.
Make a recommendation.
Just one.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. If the district is putting on this ball tournament, why are we not covering the insurance anyway?
So we could provide the insurance to the downtown festival, and that's what this would do. We would provide money for them to get the insurance. You could just tell administration to buy insurance on behalf of the organizer, who's Mrs. Cooper, or if the chamber takes it over, we could buy insurance on their behalf if that's what council wanted to do. But if it's their event, it would make sense for them to be holding the insurance, and we would be named underneath.
Because in this recommendation, it says that we're going to provide the $750 for insurance anyway.
That's correct.
Can I get a recommendation on this? Councilor
I'll make the recommendation so we can go up for discussion. I actually plan on doing it because I read it too. Council approves up to $750 for special event insurance to the Tumber Ridge Chamber of Commerce or other registered nonprofit, and in addition, not provide any in-kind service to the event unless special event insurance is obtained.
Second for that. More discussion on it. Councilor Chuck.
So my understanding, Ms. Cooper came and see me, and my understanding, she had a meeting with Mr. Wall, I believe yourself, I'm not sure if you heard all of it, but it sounded, her understanding was the district was actually gonna umbrella her under that, our insurance. It's kind of what was kind of mentioned to her, and I'm not saying it was, I'm just, I think that's where she was stuck on the insurance part. It sounded like it was gonna be attached to the ball tournament, it was just gonna be umbrella over that, all of it, so.
Well, we had discussions, but I don't remember that being part of it. Might have come up. Mr. Wall, do you remember?
Yeah, we talked about insurance. I thought I made it pretty clear that it would be under the district's insurance. I recommended to her that they start her own society in order to do this, which she said she attempted to do but couldn't. And then if she couldn't form her own society, that she should be working with a different society to do so. So in the meeting, I made it clear the district would not umbrella insurance on this event.
Councilor Holligan.
Yeah, I know, that's all I was gonna say. Mr. Wall made it very clear.
Okay. Hello. Councilor Kirby.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Mr. Wall, do we pay for event insurance for any other organization putting on events in the district? Examples, TRD, Societies for Christmas, Emperor's Challenge.
TRD Society, we do.
We pay for the insurance?
We paid, last year was 50,000, this year 90,000. I would imagine the insurance comes out of that money, yes. And to Emperor's Challenge, no, we don't fund anything in Emperor's Challenge, just a few in
Yeah. Other question on the recommendation? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Councilor Kirby?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Mr. Wall, did we pass any motion on where the location for this has gone?
No, you have not. In the absence of a motion, we'll be working with Ms. Cooper to find a suitable location.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Three point two, community survey for the TRMF funding. And I have sent out a request to the Mayor to Dr. Helm that the council agrees to be part of this conversation on the questions. I guess I would need a council to do that. So I'll make a motion that your MF representatives that are here today to be part of this conversation. Seconder for that, Councilor McKay. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Okay, delegation table? Welcome, Charles. We've got the questions. You've got our agenda here. We've got the questions that we're working from there. We've kind of changed them a little bit from what they originally were. I'm getting more and more satisfied with what I see there. I'm not sure how the rest of the council feels or yourself. Do is just to do this as a conversation. You'll be just like part of council here. We just end up in our So, council, what do you think of the questions that are put forward here? Dr. Howe?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for giving the opportunity to speak here. I appreciate that. Just to clarify, I'm an advisor to the museum. I'm not on the museum. So I just have concerns that a lot is being potentially put at risk by having a referendum at this point, in light of the climate that we've seen in the last year, and in particular with media coverage after regional district meeting recently. So I'm just concerned that it will be, whereas, many months, earlier this year, I would have had no concerns about a referendum giving a positive outcome. I am concerned that it might be more challenging to get a positive result, and that the implications for the community, the museum, the geopark, we know what happened, what the potential is with collections, etc., if the funding is not there. So that's my one concern. I guess at a more arm's length level, I've still got the feeling that there's not total understanding and agreement of exactly how kid-friendly, family-friendly, and tourism-friendly the museum is. So I think there's still a misunderstanding there. But in a letter that I sent to the regional district, my feeling is that there should be an opportunity, like we're having now, but perhaps also at a different level, of just discussing what the best, if there is going to be a referendum, what the best question would be. And my feeling is that a yes/no is better than a multiple choice. And I think it's very important, if there's going to be a referendum, and as I say, my first choice would be, I think it's risky and I think it's putting a lot of things at risk, but if council insists on a referendum, I think that it's very important to ask a question that if you get an answer, then you know what to do with the answer. Because I know of other referendums where a question gets asked and then there's an answer and no one quite knows what to do with the answer. Now what do we do? So I think it's important to ask a correct question. My personal feeling is that, as you know, my goal always has been to try and get provincial funding, and for the provincial funding in the long term to decrease the burden on the Tumbler Ridge taxpayer and the Peace River Regional District taxpayer. And so my feeling is something like for the new, a referendum that would pave the way for the new council to know what to do. So my feeling is 2 years of funding, in which time the expectation is that provincial funding becomes apparent, because you have to have the concerted effort between local, regional, MLA, Geopark, First Nations. That's the team that we envisage putting the pressure on the province to come up with funding because every other province in Canada does it and every state in the USA does it, so why is BC the odd one out? I mean, I think we've got such a strong case. So to me, that's the sort of question which needs to be asked. It's not indefinite funding, it's something like a 2-year period, and that would, if it passes, it would enable the new council to go back to the regional district to say, please, can we carry on for the next 2 years? It would give everybody an indication of which way to go. So I think the question itself is very important so that one knows it's a yes, no, one knows to do with the answer. So those are just my thoughts, Your Worship. So thank you for hearing me.
I guess the issue I have with what you just said, I think you're lumping the museum and the paleontology together. We have never funded paleontology, so we haven't funded for a while paleontology, put it that way. I don't think that's part of this referendum. I think this is just a museum we're talking about here. I don't think we're talking about paleontology. I agree that paleontology should be the province and the region. But I still don't agree that the taxpayer of Stumber Ridge should be paying for paleontology. We do pay our share through the regional district. But I think the questions here are to do with the museum. And that is where this is getting kind of lost here. And I also think this, it was a good idea. We've talked about it for many councils have talked about having a referendum on this. We've talked about it for a long time, and I think it's a good idea to get the feelings of the residents in town. And I think the residents in town see the value of the museum. I think a lot of them want to see a few changes there, as I do. But I was kind of against the number 3 question because I hope that it doesn't. I really hope that doesn't happen. But this is not a binding referendum either. It's just going to point it. It's going to give us an idea of where the residents of our town want us to go, because we seem to have hit a crossroads where you've seen it in the papers where the museum wants to go this way, the district wants to go this way. We're trying to align that. That's really what I think this is all about. I'm not sure if you understand what I just told you, but
Listen, I think that if, so I mean, everyone's going to respect council's right to pose whichever question council decides on. But I think that if these questions get asked, I mean, I'm not sure, for example, when there was the Canadian referendum on Quebec, the government came out very strongly in terms of urging voters to vote in a certain way. So to me, it's again a question of if these are the questions, what we would really like to see. I think what the museum would, I shouldn't say we, what the museum would like to see is a collaborative effort to try and continue things, knowing what is at risk if the vote goes, as you say, to number 3. So I would just hope that if these questions get asked, that there's collaboration and suggestions and recommendations from council to residents as to how to vote. Not just, well, up to you guys.
I know myself, I support the museum. I want to see it here in town. I think it's valuable. It's done wonders for this town. But there's a difference of opinion of where it should be going right now. And I think there has to be some changes in the museum because of things like the geopark coming to town, because there is now all of a sudden an overlap of things that the museum was doing that the geopark should be doing, and part of their mandate actually to do some of these things. And you brought this to town. I blame you for this problem, but it's a good problem to have. But we've got to sort it out. And I'm going to speak in favor of supporting the museum for sure. But I know which one of these questions that I'll be voting for. And I think we have to, as a council, be concerned of where the taxpayers' money is being spent and what we're getting for that money that we spent. So, Anybody else on council got anything to say on this? Mike, Councilor McCann.
Yeah, I don't like number 3, not funding the Tumble Ridge Museum Foundation, because we had people against putting in swing sets, and only because tax dollars were being spent and they had no interest, no children, and I think you're going to get a certain aspect of the vote that's going to represent that. And whether somebody would argue that they've got a right to vote too, I mean, that's why we sit in these chairs and that's why we're tasked with these decisions. I mean, and I don't think we'd be having this conversation today if the Geopark and the museum and town council. I'm ticked off at town council, some of the slag we've taken over the past years that has been totally wrong. Sometimes just with sticking to our budget and not giving the $50,000 as per the date that was already described on and it was already indicated. And when the museum foundation want to come and they want the money early, well then that's that all of a sudden council's no good. And that's the type of thing that bothers me. It's not deserved. We stuck by the contract, and then things went downhill. But what was kind of a little bit reassuring is the visit to Stonehammer that showed that they had issues at the start of that, and look at them today. There's not one group that doesn't promote the other group, and that's tourist operators, everything all the way right from A all the way to Z. And I hope we get to that point. And some of the stuff that we have had issues with over the past, I think it's time to shelf that and start fresh. Have a meeting, and whether it's the regional district or the district of Tumber Ridge, whatever we decide on paper has to be agreed by and followed by different groups. And the last thing I want to say is that I'll leave it at that for now.
Have we had any response from the TRMF about the meeting we requested again?
Have we sent that out yet? It's ready to go, so we'll be going out early this week.
I feel we're continuously getting backed into a corner here. We got backed into a corner when we didn't get all the information we required for the fee for service, and that continued on, and the bad relationship between council and the TRMF continued to get worse and worse and worse. And it feels like to me we're into a similar situation again. We're not all 100% comfortable on, well, is this called a referendum or is it now it's called a survey? Over here it's called a survey. Last time it was called a referendum, so I don't know what it is anymore. But it's changed from the wording from the previous previous agenda we had. And that's my concern, is that we seem like we get boxed in, we just gotta make a decision, where I've asked for 6 or 8 months from the TRMF to come in and have a meeting, get everybody in a room together, hash this thing out, and start talking about it. To me, this is where we are. We've got to this point because we can't get them to come in for a meeting. I don't understand why they won't come in for a meeting. I don't understand why we can't get a breakdown of the financials. I don't understand why we can't get a breakout of, here are the people that work for the TRMF. This is where the residents of Tumbler Ridge's money goes. Here it is laid out in black and white. We've asked for that and asked for that and asked for that. And why don't we have it? I talked to Teresa Townsend, she says we have it. She says we have that information. She says they've given us that information. I don't have it. I've asked for it nonstop. So what's the deal? Do we actually have it or do we not have it? Like, she says they have to give that information, broke down person by person, and come in and hand it in to our CFO. We've asked the question dozens of times, so where's the breakdown here? And that's where if we get everybody around the table and ask everybody in the room at the same time and say, why can't you give us the information? They say, we've given you the information. And then they say, well, you didn't provide it in this format, or whatever's happened. It's the same thing that happened in the grant and aid. When they handed in their grant and aid, they had an attachment on it. The attachment never came through. We were presented with the grant and aid with no attachment, right? It's a simple mistake. We've all done that. We've all forgot to attach an attachment on an email. I do it weekly. And then you resend it back in. But for whatever reason, that's the first one we get. It doesn't have the attachment. We don't know what they want. So to me, just get the meeting going. Get everybody together around the table and hash it out. It seems like to me there's a flavor for all of us to support the museum, but there's just certain things that we want picked off as we go through it. And if we can get those things satisfied, all of a sudden the yes counselors start popping up. Once you satisfy me on the financials and show me where the money's going, I'm in on the museum. I do want to see some more child-friendly things, but to me, it just, I don't understand. We're into this spot because they won't come to a meeting. That's it.
Okay, Councillor Guy?
Thanks, Councillor Rob, because that was the point that kind of escaped me there, is the transparency. And I think if we're going to be funding something, that's a must. And if we've got the right to ask questions and get answers in a timely manner. And I don't think we have to wait until it comes time for reapplication or anything else. We should be able to ask those questions at any time.
Thank you, Shepherd. Comments that have been made and so forth. I appreciate hearing from Dr. Helm as to responses to what's being discussed.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, I mean, when I'm listening to Councillor Howe, I'm just struck by how close we actually are to agreeing totally on things. So from the museum perspective, you're absolutely right, Councillor. The information that has been requested has been provided. The Museum Foundation cannot be blamed for not providing the information. It has been provided. We have no idea when it's provided what happens within this building, where it goes to, when it comes to you, how it comes to you. That's completely beyond our control. All we can do is respond to a request to provide information in good time. That is, the things that have been requested in the format that have been requested have been provided many months ago. So I actually don't understand, I don't understand it. And so and the second thing is the need for a meeting. So I mean, the Sharisa Tonneson, as you said, the president, has requested a meeting with council. So the Museum Foundation wants to meet with council desperately because there's just so much at stake. And we all know if things go south, we know what's at risk and what could be lost, not just to Temple Ridge, but to the region and the province. I mean, the stakes are really high here. And so the Museum Foundation feels there's no point in, or one could wait for the elections in the next council, etc. But the Museum Foundation feels very strongly now is the time to start, because time is of the essence. And so the desire to meet, I mean, all I can do is assure you of the Museum Board's desperate desire to meet with council, and the fact that the information requested has been provided.
Charles, we did ask for a meeting here not that long ago, and there was a request actually from Councillor Howe to have the financials. Now, if the financials are already here, and we've got it in front of us, we should be able to have it in front of us. Why wasn't that the answer and say that you'd attend a meeting, rather than, no, we didn't want to attend a meeting, we'll wait for the next council?
What I understand is, and here maybe it gets complex, but I mean, Sharisa spoke to me after she had a meeting with you, and I mean, there was just, I think people have been talking at cross purposes, so I don't think that the Sharisa or the Museum Board understood that you haven't received the reports provided. You know, there was no understanding there, so I think we're just talking past each other. And as Your Worship, you said in that message you sent me, I mean, I think it really is time just to put all that behind us and say, well, the information is there, number one. B, we all want to meet, so can we please make it happen and move on? That's the desire from the Museum Foundation.
And if we do have that information, then I'm going to come to all, you know, something.
I just want to make this very clear with council. I have shared every piece of information that has been given to me with council at every point along the way. There's been no reports, there's been no financial reports that have been shared with me or any of my staff that have not been passed to council. Full stop.
That's where we need the meeting. That's where we need everybody in the room. You guys say you've given it to us, he says we haven't received it, right? So that's where we need everybody in the room. You guys bring the information again, put it on the table. Jordan brings the information he's got, he puts on the table, and then we decide. That, to me, it's very, very frustrating. It's right here, right in front of us. Very simple. There's our breakdown, right there.
You know, if that's what we can bring to this meeting. This last time, invite that you're gonna get now is gonna be just to talk about the future. Because, Trista said that they don't wanna talk about the past, and I agree with that, except for the fact that there is some information that council needs to know about where the dollars are spent. We don't think we've got that information, but
Okay, sure. To me, this is it's a classic example, as Councillor House says, of a misunderstanding. We think you have the information, you say you don't have the information. Everybody wants to meet. It's just so important, I think, just to get beyond what he said, she said. It doesn't matter. We just need to move it.
That'll happen in a meeting.
Yeah.
So if you can bring that information and to that meeting, we can discuss that too as well. But this is we're getting kind of carried away here. But this is to decide on the questions. And I have no problem leaving out number 3, as actually was my recommendation to start with. I don't know how council feels about that. I really want to keep funding the museum, but I also want to have some input. I think council should have some input into what we expect. The residents say no, you guys don't know how to run a museum, that you shouldn't be asking. Then that makes it easy for council, you know, if it comes back that way, because then we don't have to get involved. We just say this is as much as we see at this time that we should be funding, and that's it. But I really think that any councillor that sits this in these chairs is going to want to have some input into how tax dollars are spent, rather than just doling it out. It's part of this job. We're trying to do it as well as we can.
I don't disagree with you.
So I don't know, what about number 3, Councillor Casey?
Thank you, Worship. We're talking about the need to have a meeting, sit down, discuss it, and I have no objection to that whatsoever. What we do. I think it's also important, if we are going to handle this particular council before the upcoming elections that come up, we should establish the dates, perhaps as we speak, as to when all that's going to take place. Or we're going to leave it up to the incoming council to deal with the subject and so forth. So if we're going to have a get-together meeting, I don't disagree with that one little bit. Let's set the date, let's set the time, so that the Charles and Company will have the opportunity of bringing the information that we're requesting and so forth, and let's get it on. So I'd like to see us establish the dates to do that.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense. Our problem is, I think the person that's hardest to get a date from is Charissa, because she's a very busy woman. And I would sure like to see her be here, because we're always talking about Charissa. We never hardly talk to her, and I know she doesn't like yeah, but this is going to be a small meeting. It'll be open, but it will be just between the museum board and us. You know, it's not like it's going to be a big forum or anything. But, go ahead.
The only other comment I'll make, if she can't make it, then send somebody else. There's no reason, in my opinion, why the one individual who can't make it here, will in fact eliminate the need for us, or the urgency of the matter, and so on and so forth, to discuss the subject in its entirety and deal with it. And I'm not trying to be mean or cruel or anything else about it, but if it's important enough for us to make the time to do it and do it immediately, then it's up to them to send their representative who's going to be doing the talking, or the group, whatever it happens to be. Let's get it done now.
Yes, Charles.
Yeah, no, Your Worship, thank you. Charissa is busy, but she knows very well, and she's 1 week in and 1 week out. So it's actually very easy to find a time that suits, so it's not like there's any last minute changes or anything. It's actually very simple, and she's away this week, so she's here next week. It's straightforward.
You should shoot for.
So just back to what Councillor Casely was saying, through to administration. When we talk about deadlines, I would assume that if we're gonna have some type of a referendum or survey question, whatever we're gonna call it, it has to be registered with the province, I would assume. Do we have a date on when it has to be registered with the province? You have to have your finalized question and submitted to the province.
September 14th,
And the election is,
October 21st.
20th, isn't it?
20th, yes.
sorry, 20. So,
Back to the questions. We were told, you said that at the last meeting that today was the last day that we were gonna have, or pretty well the last day.
We should, I mean, the province direction is to give it to them as soon as possible. We leave it to the 14th, everything's gotta be registered with them, they're gonna be getting everything in from every community at that point. But if council wants to push it to that date, you can, and hopefully it gets through. If,
so I'm comfortable with the way the questions sit at the present time until we have a meeting. And if we have a meeting and information comes out of that, as far as I'm concerned, there may not even be a referendum or an election, or sorry, referendum or a survey. Provided, like you said, you know, kind of getting off topic here, but I disagree with that. I think that this is the entire topic. Had we had the information first off, we would have never got to the survey/referendum. And that to me needs to be massaged into place. We gotta figure that out, so. And if it doesn't, we don't get the information, we can't go back on saying, no, we're not gonna do a survey. So to me, you have to say, this is where we're at now until we get everybody in a room. So that's forcing everybody into a room at this point.
Charles?
Just a very quick comment, thank you, Your Worship. I'm actually 100% in agreement with Councillor Howe. I personally think if we have a meeting soon and quickly and effectively, that will determine if there's a survey referendum, if so, what the best questions are to ask, etc. I'm in agreement with what you're saying, Councillor.
Okay, well, I've got no problem with that. If we can have try and have a meeting next week, that's when Sharista's gonna be back in town. I'd like to have Sharista part of this. I don't know, Charles, as you know, what always seem to be saying what she said, and it'd be nice to have her say what she said. If you lose, in the translation, you lose something. So, we'll get that letter out this, probably today. They invite the meeting and we'll set a date for next week, and then like a 5 o'clock time, is that a?
How does she finish work, Rose? 6?
6.
6.
6 would be a better time. Maybe we'll try for Monday next week, 6 o'clock.
6:10, perhaps, they still have to do lockup and stuff.
Okay. So we'll get that out today, and so we'll just leave these questions till after that meeting, and finalize, that'll still get us long before the 22nd. So we can shoot for getting it out before the end of the month.
And just for confirmation, when was the date, what is the date of
We're gonna try for 6 o'clock on Monday, the, what is, 20th, I guess.
6 o'clock?
And if there's any change to that, we'll. Okay, well, thank you, Charles, for.
Thank you.
Okay, question and answer period.
We have one.
What's that?
3.3 and 3.4.
Oh. Okay, 3.4, appointment of a deputy chief election officer. Recommendation there. Councilor Gaga.
The council appoints Roxanne Gale as deputy chief election officer for the upcoming general municipal election.
Seconder for that. Councilor Pat. Discussion on it? All in favor? Carried. that takes us to question and answer period. What's your name? I haven't seen you for a long time.
Relative to me, Mayor George. Oh, I'm sorry, Dawn. I'm not the person mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to take this moment to kind of very briefly speak in support from the Chamber of Commerce hat to the event that that you were discussing earlier regarding the fall fair. It, as you know, there's been some restructuring at the chamber level due to some sudden changes in the spring. So while we were feeling rather terminal, a miracle pill, we're trying to put a new test to see if we can survive the demise seems to be coming together. So hopefully that's not going to happen. And that we're looking to have somebody in place even on a month-to-month contract to get through the next period of time and see what winter can look for the chamber. But we do have some strong supporters in place, and we that are left as the support team of the chamber really do support the activity coming in. That's why we are working together with the Fall Fair team. Yes, they don't have a society, but I think this is a good indicator of a test subject of bringing 60 vendors or more to our community is awesome. It is business. It is a business-related event along with pleasure that we strongly support, and many of our members of the chamber are home-based business. So we do depend on them, and bringing them to the downtown core is the best spot, I feel, 100%. We see the residual effects even with GrisFest, bringing the vendors to the GrisFest grounds and the spin-offs of the downtown core. So I just wanted to make it clear that we are working with the committee. We are ensuring that the appropriate insurances will be in place for the events. I spoke with Action for the dance, for the Action Cafe is looking at taking that over. They have, of course, as we know, a new catering license and liquor license, which we can team together with them as well to ensure that all of council's concerns, I think, will be addressed. I apologize for not having that opportunity earlier, but we were kind of cinching everything together last minute on Friday, ensuring that our insurances were in place and paid, just because we had a few months off there where we were not active. So I want to thank you for supporting the event, and I think this is the beginning of a really great continued fall fair that we're going to see happen, sort of reminiscent of the Blue Ribbon days. So, and we are working with the Saddle Club, as Paul has indicated. And I agree, you know, there was some difference of directives, but ultimately for us, it's bringing business to a community, and bringing community events can never be bad for business. So thank you.
Thank you, Rose. And remember your name.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, and I agree. I think it's something that's going to be. We've had it before, and we can just bring it back.
Yep. With a new flavor for the 21st century.
Anything else? Okay, well, thank you. I guess next thing's adjournment. Councilor Kirby?
Thank you, Worship. Just regarding the museum meeting, I'm just wondering if I could make the request that we put that meeting on the 27th. Just because I've tried to make every museum meeting, I've been available, but I cannot be available for the date that we picked for the 20th. And
With the 27th, we'll just pass that week.
we need to make that, I thought it was September 14th.
No. Just trying to get it on a week that Trish is here.
Is she not here the 27th? Okay.
Excuse me, Your Worship, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I do have Teresa on text. Did you want me to ask her if she's available that date?
Yeah, you got it.
On the 27th?
Yes.
27th, yeah.
Just that I'd like to be at that meeting?
Yeah, and I'd like you to be here to be a big part of this.
She has indicated she will be here Monday to Wednesday or Thursday. She has to go back early. She's running the other store in Kelowna.
Be here on the 27th.
No, I haven't heard that back. She'd be here this coming Monday. Like a week from today, she'll be definitely available. Monday split to Thursday or Wednesday of the next week. I'm just waiting for her to answer. She's doing a prescription.
Can I make a comment? You're sort of worried about the time constraints to get sort of the referendum question registered with the government. If you're gonna call it a survey, I don't think you have to register it with the government. A survey is something that a council can have on its own volition without, having to go through the province. See, there's a difference between a survey and a referendum.
And I would think there would be a, well,
So the word referendum and why we've changed it is no longer used anymore. It's called assent voting. So assent voting is the legal process in which council has to go for certain reasons to electors. It generally involves debt or taking on a big project or a new service. What this would be more of a community opinion survey, but it still needs to be, if it's going to be included in the municipal election, it needs to be registered with Elections BC by that time.
well, I think we'll go with what we've got. See how we can do that.
So, Mr. Finch, your worship?
20th is what it is right now.
So, unfortunately, I have to think that Joanne plays an important role for our decision-making in what Charissa does, unfortunately. If I had to choose between the two, I have to have Joanne at that meeting. To me, as a council, to make the right decision, the person that's been our point man on that portfolio the whole time, we have to have in the room. So if Charissa can't make it, they need to bring somebody else to the table that can answer the questions. That's my feeling on it. We cannot lose the input from Joanne Kirk, Councilor Kirk.
Okay, I guess I need a motion then for a date.
I'm good with the 27th, if that's when it's good for Joanne. I don't know how the rest of you feel about it, but that's.
Second for that.
I'm good for the 27th, your worship.
You want to second that then, Mike?
I second the motion.
Okay. Any more discussion on it?
6 PM as well. Is that-
Yep. All in favor? Okay, that's what we're shooting for. Okay, adjournment. Councilor Trocca, second. Councilor Hop, all in favor? We're done.
Right.